on like 4 of the 7 of the 10 innovations, if that makes any sense, right? So, regional housing and planning, market study, we thought as a region, so to do a region-wide study, number one, probably not feasible, because maybe of the diversity of the, population of, let's say, 3 or 4 larger communities, and then the rest are all smaller communities. And we also thought that a market study would probably, for the region, would probably be cost prohibitive. So we really didn't spend a lot of time. As far as diversified housing and affordable, sustainable construction, and other groups have touched on it, but when we talk about what is affordable, sustainable versus just standard types of construction, then we looked at how do we do that within the context of new construction versus the existing infrastructure we have, the existing housing stock we have. And so how do we work to encourage people to reinvest, right, sustainably into their existing stock? And then at what point? So when you work out the numbers, now I for sure can't read that. When you work out the numbers, does it pencil out? So like I use an example of my old existing home, to put 60 new windows in my home would be, thousands and thousands of dollars.
Those were Marvin windows, right?
But Marvin Anderson, give or take, I'm not sure who's going to be viewing this. So, but to put replacement windows in a 100-year-old house, so that it's more energy, if the house is more energy efficient, right? Versus what does it cost on a monthly basis to maybe just burn a little extra natural gas, right? So really looking at where that pencils out in. And then from the financing end, on sustainable housing, is it more expensive to build sustainability, right? Energy efficiency into houses, and to what level do we do that? So what's that certification out there? So how do cities approach that? How do they encourage, whether they're existing homeowners or new home buyers, to really think in terms of that? Supportive and transitional housing, we didn't really look so much at the supportive housing. Carrie said that, where is she? I don't see her. Oh, she had to leave? Okay. So Carrie indicated that they just finished a housing study in Crookston, and they are full. They have enough low-income housing. What they're missing is that middle band, right? They're missing the workforce market rate housing. They have 250, 300 open positions that they could fill if they had the housing stock in a multitude, multifamily, single family combination of that. So they've kind of overshot that sweet spot, and now they have to go back and look at, okay, how are we going to tackle that problem? So that's just the community of Crookston. Mixed-use housing, we talked a little bit about that. We really felt that senior living communities, and it's up here someplace. Emily, it was your comment too, and I'm trying to find it. We've missed the mark on senior living communities in our region for whatever reason. It's a definite gap, and of course that has an effect where, as as we free up senior housing, or seniors to move into senior housing, that turns over some of their housing stock so they can be reused by someone not quite to that point in life. But when we look at senior housing, what's the right type? We have seniors that are on fixed income, so we can't build something beyond what they can afford, right? Or we have seniors that, for instance, have the financial wherewithal to buy into some sort of a co-op ownership or some sort of higher end senior housing. So it's really, you've got to build to the right mix. And so we've got to understand, even within that demographic of seniors, what can they support? There's more work to be done there, but I think, I'm going to be interested to see, in the Thief River Falls is just releasing their housing study. So it's going to be interesting to see how deep they go into, do we have adequate, we know we don't have adequate senior housing, so how are we going to concentrate on that. And then moving on to economic development. One thing that surprised me, our group, one of the 6, I guess, innovations here, regional local promotion, storytelling, and tourism. Although our agency at Northwest RDC does dabble in tourism, we publish a tourism guide every year. That wasn't high on our list of anyone that stopped by my table. We don't see ourselves as a tourist mecca. Whether that's right or wrong, I don't know. And I don't mean to insult anyone here that tries to do that, but typically I think whether it's within the region, people that live here, or people that don't live here that are from outside of the region don't really view Northwest Minnesota as a tourism hotspot or mecca, right? You know, so maybe they're just framing their classic tourism in the classic sense. Maybe they're not looking at agritourism, those types of things for whatever reason. And so I think that, you know, maybe it's the fact that we do have very few lakes up here. You know, not sure what drives that, but I think that's something that we need to be aware of and we need to work around, work with. One of the other big things I want to touch on was under economic development was number 6, sustainable consumption and waste. And we really feel that's a big opportunity. Others have touched on it before. We feel it's a big opportunity that we're missing in our region, and we think it's both from a consumer education perspective and then also a capacity issue as well. So someone mentioned, I think Reed, it was you that said, we don't even have an inventory of what our regional capability is to recycle. Like we just talk about community recycling, the use or misuse of community recycling and how it can be either abused willingly or out of a lack of education in terms of how we recycle and what our regional capabilities are to do that. And so I think, you know, that came up time and time again as we look at, you know, it can be a political hot topic, if you will, but it's all, again, how we approach it. So I think that, you know, I've had years of working with some of our college programs at the local 2-year college and student groups on recycling efforts that they really want. And you know, these are kids that are 18, 19, 20 years old. They're pushing this. They have, you know, they have a real interest in it. So, you know, I think that has a lot to do with it too. I could go on for hours, but I realize we're up against the clock here. So I'm going to stop there. Any questions or other input from our group?
Very nice, right on time. Did a good job.
Thank you.